Welcome, everybody. We have a special guest, almost Rabbi Shmuel Polin, who is the rabbinic intern at Adath Israel. Is that right?
That is, yep.
Awesome. So, almost Rabbi Polin, here we go. We're talking about this week's Torah portion of Vayakhel-Pekudei this week. So, almost Rabbi Polin, what do you got for us?
We talk about Betzalel, and we talk about how the construction of the Ark and the Mishkan took its form. The artistic contribution made by Betzalel and his trusty assistants really, it sets the tone for our people, for our entire history, really. I think that, it's really important that we talk a little bit about Betzalel and the artistic dimensions that really took form. First described in this week's Torah portion, but it appears and reappears in our people throughout our history until the very modern day. And really highlighting one of these modern of that was the opening the art project of Cincinnati, which I began familiar with the project. What we had done in Cincinnati was we rebuilt one of the wooden arks from one of the perished wooden synagogues. And the ark is now on exhibition at the Cincinnati Museum of the Skirball. And I wanted to show a short clip of us making one of the panels, and then I'm going to show some pictures of the completed ark. And I think that this really ties in perfectly with Betzalel and our Parshat HaShavua, really in a beautiful and remarkable way. And I'll show the video in just a second, but I think probably the most touching and relevant distinction of where our Parshat HaShavua fit into this project really is the people of Israel contributed in mass to the construction of the Ark and the Mishkan. They brought gold, silver, they brought beautifully woven curtains, they brought dyed wools, they brought all sorts of things to help make the Ark and the Mishkan what it was. So too, in a very similar light, this project took on that sort of dimension. People brought their talent into this project. People brought capital, they brought donations, they brought contributions in labor and love to build this ark and to make it what it was. So like any great project, there needs to be collaborative efforts. And I'm going to show a little bit about what that collaborative effort looked like today, but we know that that must have mirrored what it looked like in antiquity as well. So I'll show a quick video and some pictures of the completed ark, and we'll talk a little bit about the Parshat HaShavua and how it relates to the project and how it's very relevant in our lives today. So I'm going to share screen.
Sounds great. Did you do the work? Were you the one doing the woodwork, or was that someone else doing the woodworking?
Yeah, that was me. That was me doing all of the carving. Yeah, cool. All of the carving was hand carved, and the paints had to be handmade as well from crushed pigments. The painting was done by myself, and we also had a team of volunteers who helped out with the painting. And the carving portions, most of the carving panels were done by myself, but I had also help from volunteers, skilled and unskilled laborers who helped out with the carving as well. And
that's really great.
I'll show some pictures of the. Thank you. I'll show some pictures.
By the way, why did you have to do the crushed pigments? Why not just get other paints?
Because that's not what they used when the Ark was built. So the Ark was built in the 1700s originally, and the colors had to match what the original looked like. So if I were just go down to like Home Depot and buy some latex paints, it would not look the same. You can actually tell from looking at these paints what type of paints were used with the original. And you can tell very easily from looking at a lead-based paint or a latex-based paint or oil-based paint or a paint that's made from crushed up marble and pigments, which is what we were using.
Oh,
So
wow.
visually would have had a very different aesthetic sort of feel. So
That's great.
yeah, I will Cathedral Poland. It was one of hundreds, if not thousands, of these wooden arcs and wooden synagogues that had been located all across Europe. This arc was sees but and beauty, and really happy to be part of that rebirth and revitalization project. So
Great.
let me share some pictures of the completed arc. Is this on full screen?
Yeah, it is.
Is this full screen? Okay.
Yes, it is.
So this is the arc. And this is completed at the Skirball Museum now.
Mhm.
It's about 20 feet tall. And we had collaborated with the architectural firm, the drawing department of Cincinnati, as well as the Benchmade Woodworking of Cincinnati to help bring together this project. And we had collaborative support from Hebrew Union College, from the Skirball Museum, from Jewish Learning Network, from the Refusnik Project, from Adith Israel Congregation. There was maybe about a dozen different organizations that all helped out for the project.
Mhm.
And in addition to that, there was more than a dozen independent donors that helped out with the project too, private donors that were just interested in rebuilding this precious ark. Some of them were Holocaust survivors, and many of them were millennials, and they come from a vast array of diverse backgrounds.
When you
So,
say rebuilding it, was this something that you built totally from scratch, from the ground up, or was this something that was already existing, you just did some rehabbing to?
No, all of these arcs were destroyed in the Holocaust, and not one of them survived. The only thing that did survive were architectural, very rudimentary architectural descriptions. We had blueprints that were accessed through Polish archival material.
Yep.
And after accessing the Polish archival material, we were able to determine what the exact dimensions were and proportions. And we worked from that and then converted them into standards of measurement for US for American
Right.
US standards.
So they were basically replications of the original.
But I think it ties in beautifully. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is an exact replication of the original.
Gotcha.
And down to the colors, we were able to colorize the black and white images that we had of the ark. There were photographs of the ark originally that had been provided in the archives. We were able to colorize them. Marina Amaral, who worked with the Faces of Auschwitz exhibit in Poland, was able to provide the colorized images. And
Great.
just a really fantastic and exciting project to really bring to life, breathe life back into.
Great.
But I think it fits in beautifully with our Parshat HaShavua in an amazing way. I mean, the exact sort of project I mentioned, the collaborative effort that we see described in our Parshat HaShavua is the exact same sort of dimension of how we engaged with this sort of project. I think art education is an opportunity for Jewish education, and we see with this project, as well as in antiquity, it was something that was utilized regularly.
By the way, can you spell out for those less familiar with the inner workings of this week's Torah portion, what the artistic aspect has to do and the fashioning aspects? Can you just bring that together?
Yeah. So we have in this week's Torah portion descriptions of this collaborative effort of the people of Israel bringing in gold, bringing in silver, bringing in precious materials, bringing in finely woven curtains, bringing in the sheep wool, bringing in the different dyes, bringing in everything that needed to make the ark and the Mishkan, the tabernacle, exactly what it was. there's a collaborative sort of effort with that. And Betzel was really ordained to be the chief artisan in this project. And he had skilled craftspeople who he was able to direct independently. But there was, on a community function sort of, he was being delegated the role and responsibility of making this blueprint for a community, quite literally, and also metaphorically. He was building a community of worship and of prayer. And, it took on a different dimension for him, and how that may lead for him as a leader than it would for someone, let's say Moses or, Aaron. But he still had his very specific leadership roles. And I think that if certainly without, and if not for that, our people would not be what they are. And it's a very important sort of dimension. And it's often overlooked, I think, in Jewish education. And I think that it's a real opportunity to engage with people, particularly people who come from more artistic sort of backgrounds. And this project took on that same sort of dimension as well. There was that collaborative sort of feel. People were coming in from all different backgrounds. And it was an opportunity for both Jewish education and also Holocaust education. There were volunteers for the project and also skilled laborers for the project who were Jewish, but, often don't find themselves going to synagogue. And when I was able to share with them the images of the completed ark, they're just, absolutely thrilled. And now they're coming to synagogue. They want to see it in actual usage for Torah service, and really seeing their eyes light up and seeing how excited they get around the project is really exhilarating. And really that was the goal of the project, and has been able to fulfill that. I'm really happy about that.
Great. That sounds really wonderful. All right. So almost Rabbi Polin, thank you so much. This is really neat to hear this connection between what we see in this week's Torah portion about artistic, renderings and material, and putting it into practice and action and this project of yours.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.